Hi, my name is Gary Schechner. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Shelby American, and today we're here to introduce the 50th anniversary Shelby Daytona Cobra Coupe. And I'm honored and privileged to have the chance to introduce the father of this design, Pete Brock. Pete.
Great.
Thanks for making it out here today. We
Hey,
really
Gary,
appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
What a pleasure to be here with this car, I tell you.
Well, you did an amazing job with the design then, and as you can see 50 years later, this car is timeless in terms of its shape and how it turns heads. And we were hoping that you might take us through and show us a little bit about what really kind of went into the design of this car in the first place.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's a very interesting history on this car because we were really in a very hard spot in late 1962 and early 1963. Carroll wanted to go back to Europe and race the Cobras over there, and we've been tremendously successful, of course, winning the United States Road Racing Championship with the Roadsters.
But not just winning. Let's talk about, in those days, you guys were running through the field like a hot knife through butter, right? I mean, you guys didn't have anybody showing up with anything to really bring it to you.
Well, there were some hot Corvettes there that definitely showed us the way around there, but of course, management cut that off and the Grand Sports went away. Had those been allowed to run, it would have been a lot tougher race. But as it was, running against mostly privateers, it was like shooting fish in a barrel with those cars. They were ideally suited to the American tracks, which are only about 2.5 miles average length on them. But going to Europe, we're going to tracks like Le Mans and the Spa. And if you look at Le Mans, for example, it's got a straight alone that's 3 miles in length. So top speed was really important. And we were very limited in the Roadster top speed to about 165 miles per hour. The problem with that is that we were already as fully developed with the engines as we could be at that time with about 385 horsepower. And the only answer was aerodynamics. That was a free way to get free horsepower at the top end. The interesting thing about it was that the rules at that time required each manufacturer to build about 100 cars or 50 cars, depending on at the time that we were there. And you filled out papers called homologation papers, which listed all the changes that were allowed. Now, interestingly enough, it was actually Ferrari who instigated a change that made it possible for us to build a Daytona Coupe, because Ferrari was being pushed by Jaguar and by Aston Martin. He had led practically all the races in Europe up to that time. The Ferraris were practically unbeatable, but Jaguar was really going out very, very strong, and so was Aston Martin. So he decided that he had been pushed into making some aerodynamic changes on his car. Under the rules at that time, there was a paragraph that said an evolution of type is allowed. So you could take an existing body so that you didn't have to build 100 new cars. You could make small changes to it. You could change the front end on it. You could change the fenders on it, possibly to put larger tires on. And each of those changes had to be listed on the homologation papers. He tried to pull a fast one by listing a completely new body as an evolution of type, but there was no photograph because his development wasn't finished at the time. And the contest board of the FIA said, no, you can't do that. You cannot do a completely new body. So he went around to each member of the contest board who were deeply involved in motor racing. Some of them owned tracks or involved financially in them, and politically leaned on each one of them and said, if you don't vote for this new body that I want to put on my car, my team won't appear at your track next year and you'll lose money.
Right. Wasn't happy with the answer that Mom gave him, so he went to Dad and had the other answer given to him.
Exactly, right, yeah. So by jamming that modification of the rule, which became known as the Appendix J modification, you could change the entire body on a car, or you could change the chassis, but you couldn't change both.
Okay.
So that left it wide open for us to just simply take the body off the standard Cobra Roadster and put a new body on it.
Right.
Carroll wasn't aware of this at the time, and we were sitting around one afternoon and we were pondering how he could get back to Europe with it. And I mentioned to him that this new Appendix J rule had come in, And I started explaining, you know, what the advantage of aerodynamics were. And he says, well, will it work? And I explained what it was. And he says, well, how is that going to work? Because we went to Le Mans this past year and we put fastbacks on our roadsters and everything, and it didn't really improve the speed. And I said, that's not what it's about. I said, it's the whole shape of the car, and probably it's the front end that's the worst.